Hello, Pancake Rockers, and thank you for joining us for another Conversations on the Rocks. So, today, my special guest is Jennie Phillips. Jennie is a certified personal trainer, nutritionist, health coach with her company For Vitality, where she helps improve people's health through the fitness, nutrition, sleep, and stress. And we are going to be with her for a four-part series where we will talk about all four of those things. Jennie has a background in science and education, and she believes in meeting people where they create personalized strategies that can lead to these lasting lifestyle changes. Today, I would like to welcome her, and I also would like to point out that she has written a book called The Yellow Light Moments, and it's a wonderful book that I think everybody should check out and see what they think. I love it, and I want to thank her so much for joining us for our Conversations on the Rocks. So let's get to it. Hello, everybody, and thank you for another series of our Conversations on the Rocks. Today, we're with Jennie Phillips. Hi, Jennie. Thanks for coming
Hel-
along.
Hello, how are
And
you today?
wonderful. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
So, Jennie is a coach, author, and a speaker. And Jennie, just tell us a little bit about what your business is and what you do.
Well, I run a few different components of this business. Like you said, there's a few titles that go along there. So, I guess first and foremost, I am a fitness professional. So, I'm a personal trainer and nutritionist. I own a studio called Vitality Fitness Studio in Troy, Illinois. So that kind of takes up a lot of my daytime, but I also am the author of a book called Yellow Light Moments: Maximize Your Health and Vitality Through the Power of Pausing. And with that, I am able to spread some information about what I call the four pillars of vitality that include self care, sleep, nutrition, and movement, and how we blend those together to really optimize our energy, our health, and our vitality in life.
Wonderful, wonderful. And today we're going to talk about a few things, but the first thing we're going to talk about is self care. And I love this topic. I love the fact that when we reached out and we are talking about this, it was a great thing to really talk about more than beyond just the self care of, oh, you need to exercise and eat right, which we'll talk about those things, but really getting to the core of ourselves and understanding, stress and grief that can happen with our chronic illness. And it was just wonderful. So, can you kind of tell me about some experiences, especially chronic illness people can have, and what's happening with our body with that stress and grief?
Absolutely. It, I think what people don't always recognize, be it if they have a chronic illness or if they are someone who supports someone that has a chronic illness, a lot of people think that it's always just a physical component of it. That whenever there's a chronic illness that we are working with, that it's the symptoms, it's the pain, it's the inflammation, it's the hardness of breath, it's the fatigue, but there's more that goes along with that. There's an entire emotional and mental side that goes in that factor, and those seem to stack and play off of each other. So whenever we start to feel like we have a flare that is coming up or something has triggered us, then that can bring in a lot of emotions and mental stress as well. And so as we're going through that, it's really important sometimes for people to back down, or to back away a little bit and say, when you are diagnosed with a chronic illness or with any type of illness that is that recurring in your life, you go through a period of grief. And there truly are five stages of grief that you don't always have to go through all five stages. And there's not an order or a timeline for these particular stages. So you might find that you kind of go in and out of one, or maybe you skip one altogether. But when I was diagnosed with my chronic disease in 2017, it really resonated with me because I started immediately with denial as one of my stages of grief, thinking this isn't happening to me. There must be a misdiagnosis. I know I'm having some symptoms, but am I really diagnosed with this? And so I think at first we kind of push it away as something that's not
Mhm.
us, and we question it. And then some people go through a stage of anger of, why is this happening to me? I don't agree that this
Mhm.
is happening to me. They feel frustration, they feel resentment, they feel helpless during that time. And so it's a lot of, why did this happen and what did I do to deserve this? Some people go through a bargaining stage as far as, if I do this, then can I get this other outcome?
Mhm.
Or what ifs, or the if onlys. And so they'll try to bargain away that chronic illness. A lot of people will go through depression because what they thought their future and their life was going to be like, they might now have to walk down a different path. And so there is that moment of emptiness and sadness. They feel a lot of times that they are walking this alone. And so they might withdraw from social aspects or just with reality as a whole, just not knowing how to move forward. And then the last stage is acceptance, getting to a point where you say, okay, these are the cards that I've been dealt. This is what I have. This is the diagnosis. And I can live with this and I can move forward. And so I think it's really important for people to realize that grief isn't just about the loss of a person. A lot of people think I grieve because someone has passed in my life,
Mhm.
but grief is absolutely tied to a loss of your sense of self. And so when that happens, it causes stress. It causes you to have these emotions. That stress and result can affect our cortisol levels, which is our stress hormone. That increase of the cortisol then can create more symptoms and start a cyclical nature. So at that point, I just think it's really important, again, for people to understand themselves that this isn't something that they've done to themselves. This isn't something, um, that gives them that time to grieve, and that people that are around them know that this is a process, that you don't hear a diagnosis and then the next day you're just like, okay, here, we're going to move on from it.
Mhm.
That there is a timely process that goes through.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying is, especially when it's chronic illness, you sit there and you go, I know every single step. I've had that happen every single time. And I sit there and think, yes, because I remember so many times getting so frustrated and mad that your body could not keep up with what you are wanting to do.
Yes.
And you're just so angry and in that denial and pushing yourself. I did sports in high school, and one of them was basketball, and I loved basketball. But I got to a stage where, and I was never good at it, but I got to a stage where it was too much. And instead of me getting healthier from the exercise and all this, I actually was getting sicker. I was wearing
Yes.
myself down. It was a mess. And I had to come to the terms and accept that maybe this isn't the sport that I need, and I need to pursue a different path. But that was a struggle. That was very much an internal struggle, because you felt like you were letting the team down, your friends and yourself, and going through that whole process. And I think too, when you say this, and I'm sure you have this feeling too all the time, is it's not a process that we go through and, oh, we hit all these steps and we get to acceptance and we're done. It comes back again,
Yes.
like a flare up or something can set you back to where you're back in that cycle and you're going through it again.
Because it's a loss of identity to certain aspects. Like you were saying, when all of a sudden you're used to being able to play these sports, it was something that you were passionate about. It brought you joy. And then all of a sudden you realize your joy is causing, like you said, could be a flare,
Mhm.
or could be causing different symptoms. And all of a sudden, then you're saying, that's who I was. And now that's not who I could
Mhm.
possibly, that's who I may not be in the future. So I understand that as far as, again, like whenever a flare up comes, whenever a new moment comes, whenever maybe a medication changes, even sometimes the anxiety of knowing that your annual or your 6 month review is coming up and you're going to have blood work done, and you get to that point of, how are my numbers? What are they going to say this time? Have I been doing the right things to keep them where they are? That can also just revamp and bring back those moments from the initial diagnosis.
Yeah, that's a big one right there, is numbers. And it sets off into this the stress of that, but also the newest thing that I think people are realizing too is the medical trauma, that you're getting, like the from, your post-traumatic stress is your medical trauma in the past. And so you're right, you're finding this line where you finally accepted what you're doing, and then you hit that wall of, oh, my lung function is going down, and it can cause these reoccurrence things to happen. Like I told you earlier with my bronchoscopy, um, going in there, so having to do my bronchoscopy, I have not had one since '09. It has been that long, which is great and amazing. But it was hard to kind of understand, well, maybe my lung function is dropping. Maybe there's this rejection and I'm going to have to do this. Well, I wasn't nervous about it, but getting in there and putting oxygen on again for your procedure and doing these nebulizer treatments again, it just started to kind of bring back some, anxiety in a way, stress. And I was watching my blood pressure just go up and up and up.
Right.
And I said to them, I go, I think you're stressing me out a bit. And they were laughing. They're like, well, are you hurting? It's like, no, I'm just starting to get into this stress, in my head mentally with it all, where it is kind of like, your cortisol is rising up and you're stressing your body out.
Yes. And you remember that time at the very beginning when you're waiting for that diagnosis and that you test and you wait and you test and you wait. And then you feel like you probably, like you said, since 2009. So then, not to say that you haven't had ups and downs, but it's been probably more of a steady state. So
Yeah.
there's always that fear in the background of when is the next shoe going to drop or will it? And you hope that everything that you're doing, all of the factors that you're trying to balance in life, you're doing it in a way so that you keep yourself on that healthy track because you don't want it. A lot of us that are working with progressive diseases, you just want them to slow down. You know that there's no cure at
Mm-hmm.
this point, but let's get it to slow down as much as you can so that you can enjoy life for as long as you want. So that's
Mm-hmm.
where again there's a ebb and flow of sometimes we have to give up to get up, certain things that we have to say I used to be able to do that. I might have to change the way that I view my life or how I see find a new joy and modify. I ran marathons starting gosh over a decade ago. I'm I'm not saying that I'm not going to run another one, but it's not as easy as it was before the diagnosis
Yeah.
because body has changed. And I know there's a lot of other factors in regards to age and time and all of the other things. But again, you find, okay, well, if I'm not going to run that full, well, then maybe I'll run the half. And if I can't run the half, then maybe I'll do the 10K.
Mm-hmm.
You find out which ways you can still plug in those joys of life, but at the same time, again, there's a little bit of loss, a little bit of identity change with that. And again, but you're wanting to do that because at the end of the day, you want the progress at the end. You want the longevity at the end. You don't want to trigger something that's going to cause a bigger issue. Like you're
Yes.
saying, you want your test results to come back really well so that you're not having this rejection because ultimately you know what that is going to cost you. So there is that anxiety. There is that post-traumatic
Mhm.
stress disorder that comes in because it all triggers, oh, I remember this. I remember this from the diagnosis and how it made me feel.
Yes. So with that, what are some tips you have for us, for our listeners, about how to regulate your nervous system, how to try to keep your cortisol down and do things, different techniques and things to kind of get that under control?
Absolutely. Different for so many people, right? Because everyone finds a different way to calm themselves or to bring out that
Mhm.
joy. I always love to tell people that you're either going to add something or subtract something. So I never want them to think it's always got to be this elaborate addition. Sure, if we're thinking about ways to calm us down and to deregulate our nervous system, a lot of times we think, I just need to get away on vacation so I can get away from work and the stressors of life and the daily alarms and the
Mhm.
appointments. But not everybody has the ability to do vacations all the time. And so, what is it that we can do on a daily basis? What are some micro recoveries that we can do, whether again, we're adding something to our day or subtracting from our day. So additions, one of the things that I love to teach all of the people that come through yellow light moments with me is that a yellow light moment, if you think about when you are driving and you come up to a stoplight and it's turning yellow, it means that I don't need to completely stop if it's yellow. But I'm also not, it's not green. I'm not pushing through it full force. The yellow light is our pause to slow down, to tap the brakes, to check in with ourselves, check their surroundings, and see if we need to pivot. So in our life, we do the same thing throughout our days. Can you take a second to just take a pause, find a quiet space, and just get curious about how your day is going? How are you feeling? Do you feel that you're taking care of yourself? Do you need a little bit of a micro break, or do you feel like you're good and you can keep moving? So we yield, we listen to our bodies by asking those questions, and then we move. So that's the YLM framework. And when we move, we take that next aligned action. One thing I love to do is have people close their eyes and feel their fingerprints and just take a
Mhm.
second to just put your thumb and your index finger together and just feel it. And as you're sitting there and you're noticing the ridges and you're noticing just what that feels like, that small movement, just really focusing in on your body, you can take a deep breath and you can say, okay, how's my day? How am I feeling? How's my stress? Am I hydrated? Do I need to go get a little sunlight on my face? Do I need to take a 5-minute walk? Do I need to put my phone down for 10 minutes? So, is there something that I can do in that moment that would create an aligned action just to bring myself down? Because so many
Mhm.
times we run throughout our day and it's
Mhm.
from one appointment to the next.
Mhm.
So, can you get outside for a second? Can you ground yourself? Can you take your shoes off and feel the grass in your on your
Mhm.
feet? Can you feel the sunlight on your face? Can you smell the air? Can you listen to the birds? Anything that grounds you just to that moment in itself. Depending on what kind of chronic illness that you are working with or lung disease, sometimes breath is a hard thing. So, necessarily going
Mhm.
through those breathing techniques, I love a good breathing techniques, a box breathing. Inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4. Now, if you're fighting lung disease, that might be something that stresses
Mhm.
you out. So that may not work for you. But then there are other people that would then bring down
Mhm.
that nervous system to say, okay, now my breath is regulated again. I can go on to
Mhm.
the next thing. But it's also being very mindful of controlling what you can control. It's defining what your non negotiables are. And that sometimes means taking things away. It might mean that we have too much on our plate. And so part of your self care on a daily basis is to say, I have to make sure that every day from 9 to 9:30, I create a space where I can just do my own thing. I can set down the phone. I can walk away from the computer. For some of us that have patients and clients, that may not be a thing, but can you take a walk to the water cooler or to the bathroom and just take the extra steps there to, again, breathe, get some quiet time, get away from the noise that surrounds us all of the time? Again, what is it that you can add into the day? What is it that you can take away from the day to increase that self care?
Yeah. And that's so important. I mean, I love that. And even with lung disease, the breathing, you're right, that can be very hard and triggering. But it definitely is for all my lung listeners out there, it really is good to work on your breathing, to really try to help with your breathing in any way you can. So definitely talk to your doctors about that. But that it really is a great grounding thing to do that. Um, for me, that was a huge issue, especially during the transplant when I was waiting for the transplant. My breathing was out of control. And that whole cycle we just talked about stressed me out and caused it to even increase. So you're sitting there trying to control your breathing, and then you're freaking yourself out with anxiety. And then, of course, you're breathing more rapidly and short of breath. And it becomes this huge cycle of just spiraling out of control. And I finally agreed to get a BiPAP machine. And that was amazing. And I know that's a very hard thing, and to finally admit you need that help, but that helped so much with having a machine just kind of take away that breathing and help you with the breathing so that then you
That's
could just kind
amazing.
of relax and sit there. Um, but it was a really good thing. But no, you're so right about the taking a pause too. And I think we probably need to really ask our coworkers more, at family more. I just need a timeout. Like, can you just
Yes.
give me this one timeout? I know at work, I've come across people who have been stressed, and I'm like, you know what? Just take a break real quick. It's fine. We all can pick up a little extra if you need to just step away a second and not have a mental breakdown, over things and get that stressed
And
for
I
sure.
find if people declare what they need, because you know yourselves pretty good. So if you can define it and then declare it, you know what your needs are, you know what your non-negotiables, you know what you can control, you know where you need that white space in the day or where you need to create more margin so that you've got that room. So define what that is for you every single day and then declare it. Because if people know that, that's how you don't feel defeated and depleted all the time. It's
Mhm.
usually where we say, I can do this. It's fine. It's just a phase. I can push through. I'm fine. And then we're trying to talk ourselves into that and people just assume, well, she says she's fine, so she is. Whereas if you say one of my biggest ones for me is I have defined my bedtime. That's part of my self-care practice. So everyone knows I get up in the I get up in the morning to open the gym at 5. And so for me, because sleep is one of my biggest rest and recovery and reset portions of my chronic disease, I like to be going up to bed 8:30. My family knows it, my children know it, my clients know it, my friends know it. So even if they say, "Hey, we're going to come over and we're going to sit on the back of the deck and we want to watch the game together," they know,
Mhm.
but 8:30, you can stay outside with the rest of my family if you want to, but I'm most likely going up to bed, especially if it's a work night because I need
Mhm.
to get that sleep time. I've defined
Yes.
it and I've declared it. If I don't do it, then that's when the next day I know I'm feeling so run down. My heart rate's not the same. I feel
Mhm.
sluggish. I don't have the energy for my clients throughout the day. Mental fog is there. Inflammation I'm all of the things
Mhm.
start to play together. So you know that you can control that. It's one of the things I can control is my bedtime. So I take that very serious. And then on the uncontrollables, then I work with those as they come up. And I've got the white space for it and I've got the margin space for it because I'm not packing my time
Mhm.
every minute by minute throughout the day. I have to have those breaks. And that's what I've learned about myself, just because I know if not, I'll be completely fatigued and exhausted and I'll never make it through the entire week without some type of crash.
Oh, for sure. And you're right with the fact that we definitely do need to try to look out for ourselves, but for all of the caregivers out there too, it'd be great, for you to also kind of see these symptoms and check in and see this stuff too in that person and know, hey, when they're like this, they're getting ready to that point,
Mm-hmm.
where they do kind of need that break. Which that leads me into my next question with how can those caregivers and other friends and family support us when we are trying to reduce the stress, without getting overwhelmed?
Absolutely. I think a lot of times it is you have to communicate with them. You have to help them as well. If they are family members of yours that if you've gotten diagnosed with a chronic illness and all of a sudden you're trying to learn about it, you've got to help educate them along the way because it's going to be a huge passion of yours because obviously you're trying to make yourself feel better and you're there for all the doctor appointments and you're understanding it. You have to help educate them as well if they aren't, so that they understand, hey, if Jenny is out in the sun all day long, that's a trigger. So I know, bring a hat, bring an umbrella, make sure that I have a place of air conditioning if I can get into it, if the heat becomes
Mm-hmm.
too much. My family then knows as well, okay, we don't ask that of her. We don't ask that like, hey, we're going to go and spend the entire day on the river if there's no shade
Mm-hmm.
around, because that's going to be a flare for her. That's going to exhaust her right away. So friends and family, first, you just have to make sure you're all educating together. And then it's about honest communication. When you feel down, when you feel run, I know sometimes it feels defeating. Believe me, I know that feeling, especially when you've got four kids and you don't want to be looked at as the mom that's always tired or can't make it through. But you have to communicate with them as far as, I can't go every single night. I can't do this all day long. I'd love to, but if I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to do that, some other things like it's going to be a give and a take as far as what I'm able to do. Caregivers need the self care as well. Family members need the self care as well. If they are helping with you and helping to help you recover or move through any type of chronic illness, they need to make sure that they are also filling their cup. Because if they're the ones that are running you to all the appointments and
Mm-hmm.
making sure that they're helping you manage, make sure that they aren't getting overwhelmed so that they're constantly saying, I'm fine. It's fine. Because to
Mm-hmm.
them, it's a service of love. And of course, they want to help you out. But at the same time, it's one thing I talk a lot to my caregivers about, just make sure that they're taking their yellow light moments, because you
Mm-hmm.
can't pour from an empty cup. So, as a caregiver, how are you sleeping? How are you doing your self care? How are
Mm-hmm.
you hydrating and nourishing your body? And how are you moving, not just an activity of taking us places if we need the help, but how are you actually exercising, resistance training, cardiovascular, keeping yourself healthy?
Yes, and that's very important because as a caregiver, you have to sit there and think, if I'm down, then this person is even more in a bad spot because they have nobody to now take care of them and take them to those appointments and do things for them. So I know it's real big in my pharmacy profession. I do hospice a lot, and the hospice have caregivers, and we're always big to say, our hospice nurses, they can help set you up with a social worker who talks about respite. So maybe you need a break, and this person can go to a place, it's usually nursing homes, and just stay for a few days or a week so that you can take care of you. And there is nothing wrong with that. And it's just a matter of saying, you just have to acknowledge when you need that extra help. And there's lots of resources. There's even, you know, people just don't want that. They don't want them to leave, and that's fine. Well, then there's caregivers that can come to your home and take care of you. And even if you're not on hospice, there are still caregivers out there that you can hire and come to your home and take care of you, and do the things that, you need the little extra help for.
Absolutely. Because I think it's really important to also give credit to people that are working with a spouse that has any of these chronic illnesses. You have to realize not only is the person living with the chronic illness going through these grief cycles, but the spouse might be going through that, or the family member might be
Mhm.
going through that as well, because now all of a sudden they realize that the life that they had intended with their partner might be changing. So they too are working through matters of maybe some anger and frustration
Mhm.
and denial, and having to get through acceptance as far as this is how our life is. So making sure everyone has those access to outlets, the community, therapy, all of the doctors, all of the information to make sure that they're getting supported.
Yeah, because you're right. It's very easy, especially, I think, especially when you've had a chronic illness your entire life, it is very easy to just constantly say, I'm okay, I'm okay, because you can get very bogged down with everybody bugging you about it all the time. But you have to definitely know when I need that extra help from this, or whether it even be counseling, or even having somebody come into your home. Maybe you don't want them to take care of your person that you're caregiving, but maybe they can just come and do the dishes or clean for you. Those other extra steps that you can then relax more and try to focus on the person that you're taking care of.
Because energy maintenance is huge for the caregiver as well as the person living with the chronic illness. Having that energy is one of our best resources. And so exactly, if you can give up again on either side of things, all right, I'm going to go ahead and let Walmart deliver my groceries so I don't have to worry about the mental thought of getting there, time
Mhm.
thought of getting there amongst all the appointments maybe that you're going through. And then again, the physical load of that. Or again, as a caregiver, you're already handling everything so much that you're like, I'm just going to focus on the things inside the house and let the things outside of the house be taken by someone else. And that isn't a sign of weakness. It
Yeah.
isn't a sign of failure. It's simply a redistribution of how you're spending your energy so that you
Hmm.
can use it in the areas that matter the most.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, we're not superheroes and that we just need to acknowledge that. How would you help them or advise people to just start to move on to that, move into that acceptance? And when you get to that acceptance, what are some positive actions or some positive thoughts they can think? Like, what would be your advice on that for them?
I think being able to brain dump all the negative. So, all of the things that you're afraid of, write it out on paper, not in any specific format, just like an empty page of paper, all the fears, all the anxiety, all the stressors, everything, just get it out of your head, whether it's on a daily basis, a nightly basis, just all in just like one spot. Let's put it out there and then focus on the positives, focus on where you can be grateful, focus on things that you can appreciate, focus on the things you can still do. Because at that point, we're going to reframe how we see things. We're going to
Mhm.
reframe our life from, because again, you can't walk through the stages of grief in any one particular, you can't just say, okay, I'm taking 2 days for anger, then after anger, I know a lot of people say that you get 24 hours and then move on, but that doesn't always work emotionally. You
Yeah.
can't always force yourself out of that. And so, but I think what you can do is acknowledge it. Let's
Yeah.
acknowledge and bring it all up forward. Don't stuff it down, but let's put it all on paper. What are the things that you feel like you want to bargain? Which are the things that are scary? Which are the things that are unknown? Decide what you can control. Control the
Hmm.
controllables, the rest of them. If they're out of your control area, then okay, how am I going to move with that? Do I need some help? Do I need more education on this? Do I need to share this with a support team? There are great support teams out there for every chronic illnesses out there. Someone has probably already walked the path that you're about to walk. How did you do it? How did you move on? What are some ways that helped you step through this process? What are ways that helped your family step through this process? Things that can shorten the learning curve, and then focus on the things that you still
Hmm.
have in life. Because I think that was the biggest thing for me when I was diagnosed in 2017 with lupus. The first thing I did was just, okay, well, I got to figure out what lupus is. I don't even know what it is. And you can read a lot of scary information. And I just thought, I want to be there for my children's weddings. I want to be there for my grandchildren. So let's dump all the scary thoughts out there. Let me ask all of the questions to all of the people. I would take notepads of paper in with my doctors and just be like, we're going to go one for one because I just want to know everything that there is. And I just need you to calm some of those fears. Because then I could say, okay, I've got the knowledge. I've taken some time with it. I've had time to digest it. My family and I have had times to talk about it. So finding out what their worries were too, coming
Hmm.
home and saying, I have lupus. And they're like, we have no idea what you just said and what that means for us.
Yeah.
Like our what are we doing here?
Yeah.
So walking through that together and being like, we're all gonna learn together so that we get to a point where we say, okay, again, I know my limitations, but those limitations aren't life defining. It doesn't
Mhm.
change everything. It just simply says, okay, there are just certain things I'm going to do differently. I'm going to redefine kind of what my vitality looks like. I'm going to be really honest when I get tired. I'm going to be really honest when I feel like, I'm just not myself. And I'm hoping that they'll give me grace the process. You have to give yourself grace through the process if I've learned anything, because even day to day, it's not the same because
Mhm.
there's so many factors that affect how you feel. It could be a
Yeah.
hydration level. It could be how much you moved. I felt great the day before, so I did a lot of movement. The next day, all of a sudden, I'm like, why can't I move the same way? I was
Yeah.
just like that yesterday. Oh, I
Yeah.
probably did too much the day before.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the fact that medication changed, or I didn't sleep well at night. And so that affects it. It could be the weather. It could be holiday season. And now there's stress of family being around, or creating
Mm-hmm.
environments and events because you all want to get together, that again just put a different load on us
Mm-hmm.
than that maybe we were used to. And so again, your symptom then creates some stress, which then increases your cortisol level. And when it does that, again, we're going to fight the inflammation, the pain, and the exhaustion. And then that creates new symptoms, which creates new stress, which creates more cortisol. So just being very aware of it. Be
Yeah.
aware where maybe you can kind of break the cycle. And it doesn't mean that all of a sudden it breaks it and it stops. It just, you are lessening it so that you say,
Yeah.
okay, I'm aware of what's happening. I'm aware of where I need to take that time for myself. Your
Mm-hmm.
family is aware, okay, this is a little too much, or they're in a moment of a flare, or they just, got some results back, and it's probably going to take a few days to kind of work through that again. But I think honest communication is huge with that.
Yeah. You're right. It's a cycle that never ends, but it's something that we can definitely try to break or get through to that acceptance part and moving on. And like you said, every yellow moment, taking those yellow moments and pausing and resetting ourselves and getting grounded again. I love it. Thank you so much, Jenny. And I hope everybody had a wonderful time and learned a little something new. And I'll see you again next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Hello.